Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some ProRevenge. Our first story today comes to us from As an Atheist Films. Try to stiff me? Get a mechanic's lien. Let's jump right in. The job. I was starting my side business doing IT work for businesses and had some successful jobs for a few companies. I found word of mouth was the best way to gain new clients because entrepreneurs tend to network with other business owners. Tony was one such client who had heard I had done some work for a client and called to see if I could help. His company's needs were to stop using semi-accounting service that they had been paying a percentage of their profit to process payments, purchase orders, and billings and receivables. He brought in an accountant to work a new product, pretty well known. They wanted a server to be accessible remotely and had already paid their ISP for a static IP for the server, but needed the actual server, redundancy UPS, and firewall device. I explained that for the product they had, we could probably set up a workstation and not a server, and it would run approximately $3,500 total and would be easy, but no, the owner wanted a full-blown server system with all the bells and whistles. He explained that he would likely be using the server for a CRM and a few other systems later on. The setup. Overall, the entire cost for the system would be $8,000, not including a few other services that needed annual billing, VPN, remote service. Equipment cost was $7,500, my labor charge was $500, UPS was $1,500, server was $3,800, and refurb firewall, Cisco ASA, with programming by a third-party specialist was $1,800, and a spare rack was $400. I got my contract signed, put an order with my distributor, I have a net 45 setup with them, and the firewall specialist, and got to work 1.5 weeks later when the firewall came in last. I finished the job on a single weekend, and got everything up and going after a call to the ISP, whom did not like the firewall appliance I installed. For some reason, they had to tweak things on their end and finally allowed the traffic to go through once more. I confirmed function with the owner, whom verbally approved and was happy. The butthole move. I sent my invoice promptly on Monday, left it as in they had 1 week to pay. When I saw no reply or payment after 4 days, I messaged Tony and asked if they had received my invoice. To my surprise, he replied the server was not working, and proceeded to call me and tell me that the whole thing was a total waste of money and I should have never done the job. I of course apologized and informed him I would be on my way to fix whatever the problem was. When I got there, they refused to let me in to see the server, claiming they had someone coming over to fix my mishaps. At this point, I informed them they still needed to pay for the equipment and we could maybe discuss my labor after I figure out what's going on. Tony refused to let me in and was pretty upset. The advice. At this time, I was pretty upset. 2.5 weeks had passed since I ordered my equipment and my distributor was needing to get paid within 45 days. I was getting very nervous and was thinking of taking it to small claims court until talking with a friend, he informed me that I could pull a mechanic's lien. I informed him this was for IT, and he stated that mechanic's lien where I live can actually be pulled on various industries, and IT was one of them. So I started the process to fill out and file a mechanic's lien on Tony's company. Much to my surprise, there was no court date. All I needed to do was provide considerable proof to the clerks, and later to the constable. The revenge. After filling out the mechanic's lien and serving him notice, I once again gave him the opportunity to pay the $8,000 owed. By this time, I had spoken with my distributor and he switched my account from net 45 to net 90. He refused via phone call and got him on text. I took the information I had and went to the local constables, whom, after seeing the mechanic's lien and proof, set up an appointment to meet me at the place of business to take back my server, UPS, and firewall. I went in on Tuesday, which I had learned was the day the accountant came in to start the week. Constable and I arrived at 7:30 a.m. right at opening time. At first, they refused entry until Tony came by and was informed I was enforcing my mechanic's lien and would be taking back my equipment. He immediately got riled up and claimed I could not take the equipment because a new person had replaced it all. The constable asked if I had serial numbers and models for the equipment, which I did. We go in and find my server, UPS, and firewall all in the exact same way I left it. The server showed it had been online for the entire time, no real changes were noticed, and as far as I could tell, no one had worked on it. Tony began to chuckle when I shut the server down and says, "How are you going to take the system when it's bolted to the ground? Bet you didn't think about that, did you, idiot?" He did not realize that rack-mounted equipment is not permanently attached to the mount. I guess he thought he had me beat because it was all one system that you cannot take apart and not something that was put together. His jaw dropped the moment I removed the server and loaded it onto the cart after removing a couple of bolts. He started panicking and started telling the constable that he would sue him if he didn't stop me. The constable simply stayed calm and ignored the owner. I guess after a bit, he informed Tony that he needed to get out of his face and step back. But when Tony refused to back down, the constable undid his holster safety harness and put his hand on his pew-pew. Tony's face was exquisite, full of fear, and eventually a dawning sensation that this was going to happen one way or another. At first, I did not understand why he was so riled up, and now had a panicked face like his world just collapsed until a bit later. I wrapped up my server, UPS, firewall, and left the rack. True to Tony's word, undoing the bolts proved difficult to impossible with the tools I had, so I told Tony he could keep it for the new server he tries to set up. It didn't take more than 2 hours before I got a call from him stating that he had talked to his attorney and he would be suing me for damages and I would be going to jail for trespassing. I informed him he did not pay for the equipment, his equipment was repoed, thus there was nothing to sue for. As far as trespassing, I was serving a mechanic's lien with a law enforcement officer, thus it is not trespassing. He then starts hemming and hawing about how he needs to bill clients because he hasn't had revenue in a week, but his accountant can't do anything because she has no access to the accounting software and they have no copies. I informed him that it was not my problem. I would not be giving access to the server nor data contained, and he should have paid for the equipment instead of trying to screw me over for $8,000. He then offered to pay me if I could install the server back in the same day, but only if I did it that same day, otherwise he'd find someone else. I informed him that our original contract was null and void. I would be returning the equipment to my distributor, but first I had to wipe the storage by DoD standards, which means 0% chance of recovering files unless he somehow had NSA level funds. He starts freaking out and resorts back to what he usually did, threatens me to lawsuit, make my life a living heck, etc. So I hang up and tell him I'm going to proceed to delete his data that evening and that I was no longer interested in working with him. More advice and the real revenge. He called me at least 50 times. I just silenced my phone and had to talk to my friend later that night, the friend whom had given me the advice. He then tells me why I was returning the equipment if I had the only copy that has everything from client names, contracts, phone numbers, billings, receivables, etc. He asked me how much revenue did the company generate. I informed him that I was taking a wild guess, but it was somewhere in the ballpark of $58,678.21 for the last month. He laughs and tells me, why don't you charge them double the price to get his equipment back and have him pay you cash before you start? He was right. I was taking my petty revenge and walking out with an $1,800 in a firewall. I had to pay in advance and a $500 unpaid labor charge. Why not take it a step further, get sweeter revenge, and get paid a fat stack of money? The following day, I messaged Tony. I apologized for the way I behaved yesterday. It was not professional. Unfortunately, your crap attitude and attempts to screw me over got the better of me. The server has not been wiped yet. I would like to reconsider a new arrangement so we can salvage this sour experience and turn it into sweet honey. Are you interested in working with me to get your equipment back? I must warn you, it will be extra since I would be doing double the work. Let me know. Tony immediately called me and immediately his butthole ways came up. I knew you would change your mind and come crawling back. Yes, I want everything back, but I'm only paying $8,050 and not a dime more. The $50 is me being generous to give you a second chance to do things right. I immediately informed him that I still have all the equipment and in fact, it would only take maybe 20 minutes to complete the job. However, I had a different idea in terms of the price. The new price was $15,000 to be paid cash. He immediately starts yelling and hollering. I keep talking and inform him he has 2 weeks to decide if being able to get paid by his clients was worth it. If not, the equipment was going back and that would be that. No hard feelings, I hang up. About 2 days later, I get a call from Tony informing me he agreed to new arrangements to please set it up and install it ASAP. I tell him I can go Friday, but I would need to be paid $15,000 cash before I even unload a single bolt from my vehicle. He agreed. I could hear a lady talking, telling him he needs to get this resolved because they had not had revenue in nearly 2 weeks. This was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I get a call from his daughter, whom is apparently the accountant and the lady whom was telling him to resolve it. She is cutting a check and needs to know my name. I inform her I would not be accepting checks, and I had told Tony specifically it would be in cash. She says okay and tells me if the amount of $12,000 was correct. I once again correct her and inform her the correct amount was $15,000 cash. She said in satire, "Of course it's $15,000. I will go make the withdrawal and have the money ready tomorrow." Sure enough, Friday morning, true to her words, she and Tony were there with $15,000 cash. I counted it in front of her and Tony. She makes a comment saying I was a lifesaver because they could not go back to the office they used before to get paid, and they urgently needed to get some POs sent out. I placed it in my vehicle, locked the glove box, and unloaded the equipment. True to my word, it took me 20 minutes to place the server, firewall, and UPS inside the rack mount, connect the cables, power on the server, and ask them to test it out when they get a chance. If anything was wrong, to not contact me and to have a good day. I actually had tested it out already before I left their server room. Despite my pettiness at times, I am still a professional. It sounds like this guy screwed over a bunch of people in his past, probably some small businesses who didn't have the recourse to come back on him, but OP did a great job of making this guy pay double for being a butthole. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Infinite Respect 4757. Revenge is a dish served very, 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 very cold. Let's jump right in. In my young 20s, I moved to a new city to try and start my career and life. Money was very tight, but I was confident I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm, The Firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner said he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was a fit, they would hire me, and if not, they would pay for the 2 days. Money was so tight at that time that I figured taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I could not afford, and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. I did good work both the days and worked very hard, but it was not a fit. The owner then tells me, "I know we said we would pay you, but it's just too complicated to set you up for just 2 days, so you will just have to be happy you got the experience with us." The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad as I really needed the money, but as I was trying to find a job and I figured it was not in my best interest to make waves as word may get around that I was difficult. I did, however, decide at some day, some way, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that led to a great career, but I always kept tabs on the owner, looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed, and now I was a very senior in my chosen professional, but instead of working for a small firm, I was a leader in a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up that I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area the firm operated in. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on these contracts was at the firm's expense at the time. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted them in moving to the next stage, and the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was shut them down right away and got a bit of revenge, but there would be no fun in that. There was some risk to letting them go through to the end though I was the lead, it was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentations came in, and lucky the other firm was a bit better and we went with them. Normally, the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, and tell him, "We were impressed with your proposal, but it's just not the right fit. I know you must be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process." I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I could just not bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. Can we all see that there's a moral to this story? The moral of the story is, the people you piss off, they don't just disappear. So behave yourself with their property at all times, because you never know when it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. Our last story today comes to us from Little Miss Bunny Woman. Dirty, dirty little lunch thief. Let's jump right in. In the past, I have read about dirty, dirty little office lunch thieves and have wanted to share mine, but had other things going on to post it. This took place when I was still a teen fresh out of university, working directly under an engineer. The office I was doing my 4,000 hours in was fairly large, 5 floors of a large office building, a Toronto construction firm. Well, I was lazy and always picked up a lunch from Whole Foods, usually sushi, on my way to work. My floor had its own break room and fridge, and for the first 6 months, nothing ever went missing, until we got a batch of university office interns in, paid interns. Then, wouldn't you know, lunches would go missing, and it wasn't just mine. Any lunch in store packaging was gone, if there was a name on it or not. Well, after 2 weeks of our lunches just walking away, we're all getting pissed. Don't F with my salmon sashimi. One of the engineers comes up with an idea and asks everyone to throw in a couple of dollars to solve this problem. The following week, he sends a text to the store-bought lunch people to meet in the break room before work, and sent a text to everyone in the office to not touch any of the packaged lunches. We meet up and he hands us this little spray bottle to spray the packaging. It was this blacklight reactive spray, glows from a blacklight, but completely undetectable. Lunch rolls around, and guess what? Every single packaged lunch is gone. And this guy brings out a blacklight and starts searching for fingerprints. He found them on the door down the hall to the elevator. Now imagine 5 of the super nerdy engineers you have ever seen going down a hallway with a blacklight like something from a discount CSI. Well, there's fingerprints everywhere, right up to the elevator on the buttons, down to the second floor. Down the hallway at this time, I figured some of the interns are nicking our lunches, but I was wrong. We followed it right to the head of the sales department's desk. We demand to see his hands, and they effing were glowing like crazy. Not to mention he had touched his face, so there was this glowing mess covering his face. The guy knew he was caught, and we made an agreement to not go to HR, but to get a picture and a pizza for every floor every Friday for 2 months. We stayed extra that day to print out the glowing mess that was his face. We printed at least 100 of them with the caption, "Dirty, dirty lunch thief." Those darn things went up everywhere. The bathrooms, all the entryways of the building, every office door and desk in sight. Needless to say, the lunches stopped going missing, and I was able to eat my sushi in peace. OP left an edit on the story. It says, "I worked there for 2 years after this. The guy never got fired or punished, but did get made fun of and received the nickname of the lunch thief." In a second edit they said, "I'd also like to add, I know I was 100% a diversity hire. Asian, English as a second language, young, and a woman. They have a quota in hiring us minorities, and might as well check as many boxes as you can." Now, another thing that OP mentioned in the comments down below is that they couldn't take any credit for the idea. They were actually deciding to spray all the food with something like LSD, which probably wouldn't have worked out quite as well. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.